Lesson 216, Review 6. It can be but myself I crucify. Sarah's commentary. It is not difficult to get the idea that if we attack, we suffer, but it is much more difficult to really live it every day, especially when we experience any kind of perceived attack and feel justified in retaliating. Notice how easy it is to see flaws and what seem to be idiosyncrasies and inconsistencies in others, and to use these to judge and to criticize. Yet it is precisely what we do not like in ourselves that we condemn in others. The solution, of course, is, quote, "If I forgive, salvation will be given me," end quote. Forgiveness in the Course is always about remembering that the lesson is always our own. Everything comes from our own minds. We are the dreamers of our own dream. We are judging something in our brother that we have not forgiven in ourselves. Our brother can truly be an effective mirror for our own mind if we are willing to take responsibility for what we see in him as a projection of our own perceived deficiencies and self-attacks. Now, if you look closely at the wording of this lesson, you will see it speaks entirely about what we are doing to ourselves. When I get upset with someone, I find it helpful to see there is no other. What I am seeing in anyone is entirely my own mind. I can only be affected by the situations and behaviors of others attacking me if I give them the power to hurt me. Seeing ourselves as victimized by others is the way the ego set it all up, so we can justify our own attacks and deem ourselves innocent in the face of attack. When we forgive by seeing we are responsible for our own pain, we see that in truth no one has done anything. Yes, in the dream something seems to have happened, but the cause is only in our own minds. Others are just playing out the script we have written for them. It is as if they are reading their lines from a teleprompter, and these lines have been determined by us. This probably feels like quite a stretch, but it is very helpful in remembering that their response to us, which may look like an attack, is actually orchestrated by our own minds for our own awakening. We are not the victims of the world we see. Jesus asks us to be wary of the idea that we can be unfairly treated. Quote, "Unfairness and attack are one mistake, so firmly joined that where one is perceived the other must be seen. You cannot be unfairly treated. The belief you are is but another form of the idea you are deprived by someone, not yourself." End quote. Our brothers have simply revealed the pain and unhealed aspects of our own minds. This pain must be brought forth for healing. Because they have revealed it to us, they are actually our saviors. If we forgive, salvation will be given us. And what is salvation but to know our own innocence, joy, and happiness? We cannot know this when we attack. Quote, "What we give, we receive," end quote, is a law that works 100% of the time. There are no exceptions to it. I can think I am hurting you and maintaining my innocence, but this is the lie of the ego, which tells us we can get rid of our guilt by projecting it onto others. Anytime we hurt anyone or try to gain at our brother's expense, we will suffer. We cannot escape the reality that what we do to others, we are actually doing to ourselves. The ego tells us to project guilt to be rid of it. What it does not tell us is this is precisely the way guilt is kept in the mind. The golden rule says, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you." Now it seems like there is a choice. The choice is to offer love to our brothers or to withhold it from them. However, there is no wiggle room with this law. What I give, I receive. It is an immutable law. When I cause pain, I will feel pain in return. How it shows up is that I suffer guilt and believe I deserve punishment, and thus I draw it into my life. The difficult events of our lives are based on the belief that we have them coming to us because of our attacks on others. All attack is meant to hurt. We can say we did not mean it, but we are just lying to ourselves. We actually attack because we want to. That is why watching our mind takes discipline, vigilance, and the courage to be very honest with ourselves. It requires we look openly at our intentions and see where we try to get from others, using them for our personal gain. What we are doing in these situations is always hurting ourselves while serving our specialness. I cannot think of anything that undoes the ego more readily than to really take this law very seriously and use every opportunity to look at our defenses and take responsibility for our projections. When we are not being kind, forgiveness is called for as soon as we have tried to gain at our brother's expense. Any negative thought we have about anyone can immediately be dispelled by diligently applying the lesson. Application of the lesson must become a habit that we overlearn, as it is not generally our immediate reaction to a difficult situation. Quote, "The ego always speaks first," end quote, means the ego will be the first to give us its interpretation of any situation. Thus, our response today is, quote, "This thought I do not want. I choose instead. If I forgive, salvation will be given me," end quote. Or, quote, "This I do not want. I choose instead. It can be but myself I crucify," end quote. Or use a version that works for you so it will be meaningful to you. This is not just rote repetition of words. Words are powerful, but only when we connect them with them deeply and with sincerity and conviction. If what I am doing brings me suffering, I have another opportunity today to recognize I can experience peace instead of this. Would you not be highly motivated to change your thoughts and behaviors if you truly believed in this law? We would do this out of our own self-interest. If I was to shoot an arrow at you that landed in my own heart, I would be highly motivated not to make that attack on you. Thus the lesson affirms that this is exactly what happens, except the forms may change in which our attack comes back at us. If I blame you, my car breaking down may be my form of self-punishment, or I may lose my job or get sick. We draw all these experiences to ourselves for a purpose. They are all there to remind us that as we forgive, the world looks more and more benign to us, regardless of what problems seem to be there. We are then able to see beyond the events and accept them as part of our classroom, rather than resist and bring more suffering into our experience. There are many ways we attack our brothers. We may even find ourselves using the metaphysics of the Course to make the other person wrong. We may try to correct them, judge or critique them in the belief we are being helpful. Yet when we step aside and place the Holy Spirit in charge, only then is peace possible, but we need to be gentle with ourselves in this work. We have believed for a very long time the cause of our distress is outside of our own minds. Changing our minds about this belief requires a lot of vigilance and discipline. Jesus is helping us to realize everything is coming from our minds and not from hostile elements in the world or as a result of the condition of the body. This is all part of the ego's strategy to keep us mindless. When we discover the murderer is within, it can induce a lot of guilt, and when we feel guilty, we find ways to punish ourselves. Quote, "For the ego does not want to kill you, and if you identify with it, you must believe its goal is yours." End quote. Lesson 196. It can be but myself I crucify. Jesus says our attack on others in the name of self-defense leads to our fear of crucifixion at the hands of God and the world. As Lesson 198 reminds us, quote, "Only my condemnation injures me. Only my own forgiveness sets me free." End quote. It is helpful to remember in this regard, quote, "Everyone makes an ego or a self for himself, which is subject to enormous variation because of its instability. He also makes an ego for everyone else he perceives, which is equally variable. Their interaction is a process that alters both because they were not made by or with the unalterable. It is important to realize that this alteration can and does occur as readily when the interaction takes place in the mind as when it involves physical proximity. Thinking about another ego is as effective in changing relative perception as is physical interaction. There could be no better example that the ego is only an idea and not a fact." End quote. How does this relate to today's lesson? Well, we all play the game of separation and the game of hurt. We have all called into our experience all the characters that show up in our play, as well as those who play the roles of our friends and enemies. We are like children playing this game, but we have forgotten and now take it all seriously. We can stand back and laugh at it all. It is actually just a silly game we forgot we were playing. Yet our thoughts about it hurt us when we take it seriously. We can heal this hurt by asking for help to forgive our thoughts, even if we don't do it in a tangible way or in proximity to those who have seemingly hurt us. We can do it just in our own thoughts alone, and we can do it by foregoing our desire to crucify our brothers or try to get for ourselves at their expense. When we forgive, we see we are all the same. We share the same ego, albeit with different life circumstances, and we share one self. Love and blessings, Sarah.